Hey, Mike.
Hey, Robbie.
I just unplugged.
I heard you.
Got it. Ah, gosh, I meant to do it right before I answered, but hey, it's still an improvement.
Have you called? I mean, you got to talk to somebody about your wiring over there. Of course, that was.
Is it off?
No, it's off. Yeah.
Oh, well, my charger was plugged in.
I know, but boy.
I mean, hey, maybe it's time for a new laptop. I don't know. Or it's probably time for a new charger. This charger's been through the ringer, and it's one of those, like, it's at the point to where I have to spend like 3 or 4 minutes in like a really meditative Japanese origami mode.
Yeah.
To construct my wire to like the perfect angle and curvature to where it connects and stays charged. So it's probably time for a new one, but I don't like spending money, so I'm probably gonna wait it out until I have a meltdown one day and get a new one.
Yeah, I hear you. And we're also investigating the idea of putting microphones into this podcast.
Yes.
Instead of Skype headsets and things like that. We're looking to up the game.
Up in the game. We new year, same us, but trying to provide a better quality for all of our fantastic listeners throughout the world.
Yes. It's I'm excited about that. I have to do a little more investigating, and there's a lot of nuances and technology involved in that process. So, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Hey, we got to research. We don't want to jump the gun, and we don't want to, especially for you, we don't want the audience to lose the silky smooth radio voice that is Mike Terrale.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that could really plummet our downloads.
I was thinking about that. Should we turn into the podcast guys?
We could.
I was practicing that this morning, just kind of joking around.
In front of the mirror?
No, not in front of the mirror.
Okay. We could try. I mean, Rich Roll does it a little bit, but he doesn't really go like really into it. He just has, this is the Rich Roll podcast, and then he exits with his peace and plants thing. But he's got a pretty good radio voice too. But yeah, we'll do what's best for the listeners, what's best for the podcast, and do the best we can overall for our audience. And here's to a great 2018.
Heck yeah, man.
Has it been a good start for you?
I got to admit, I was inspired by How to Not Suck at Swimming #3, and I hit down to the pool shortly after that for a intense hypoxic workout.
And?
It crushed me.
Oh, it crushed you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I was waiting for something. I couldn't get a lane, or I had to turn around, or the pool was closed, or the lifeguard didn't show up. One of those things.
Yeah. No, I mean, it really is, and we kind of got to this towards the end of that podcast. But getting faster takes work. It's like you're not going to get faster as a runner if you're just out there walking every day.
True.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing, but it's the same thing for everything right now.
Well, everything.
If
you don't try something hard, I was thinking about that, and I like to screw around with drumming, and a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll go down there and I'll put on a song and kind of hack around to it for about 30, like some pre-recorded music for like 30 minutes, and I'm doing nothing to get better. What I should be doing is spending 15 minutes on a hard drill that I can't do.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, something here that makes you really, really have to think and be present with zero distractions.
Yeah, it's like you start doing that stuff at a slow pace, and then before you know it, you can do it fast, and then before you know it, you're not even thinking about it, and you just do it. So that's how you grow, and I just can't get over that. You talk about it, but this idea of we practice running on hills, we practice riding hills, we practice these different elements in the run and the bike, but we never try to make the swim. Well, I was never, but most triathletes don't take the swim course and the potential obstacles of swimming in open water into account to practice. It just blows my mind, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Did you ever? You have to be, but are you a pretty fast typer?
Yeah, pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, me too. I would say that, like, honestly, one of, like, looking back on it, the most beneficial class I ever took in high school was keyboarding.
That's funny. That is
I mean,
so
I really didn't want to, but as somebody said, listen, I know you don't want to, like, we were a senior. I was a senior in high school, and we were all taking it. It was all of the whole football team, so it could have easily been a joke. And we had, but I can't remember who told me this, but they're like, listen, I know it'll seem stupid with your, your ASDF and your JKL semicolon, and it's like, and you'll feel like an idiot doing, like, these, one tab back and forth, like spelling these real short words and doing this. But they said, if you just do it next year in college, when everybody is trying to hunt and peck to type their papers because they just didn't want to pay attention and just learn it, this slow, methodical, spelling small words and bridging, if you just concentrate and get to the end, it will be the one class you look back on and think, I got more benefit out of this class than any other class. And I think it was me and maybe only 5 or 6 other guys really took it seriously. And it is 100% without question the best choice I made probably in high school when it came to academics. But it was
funny because, and I just want to point this out before it gets off it, because when I was I think I took it in 9th grade and going into high school or whatever it was, and I was kind of talking to my dad about my elective schedule, and he said, "Oh, typing's the best thing you can take." That's what he told me. I was like, "What?" He goes, "Oh, you need to take typing. Get that down."
Yeah. But I mean, I'm sure the people listening, they're like, man, I spent my freshman, sophomore year of college, or like having to hunt and peck for these 4 or 5 page papers. But that's learning a skill like that where you can do it almost mindlessly. Like skills like that, like swimming or like anything else, like it just takes time. And you have to really you have to be methodical and very purposeful for it. But it's just one of those things where you just have to start slow. And that's the hardest thing really for a lot of athletes and a lot of people about this week in general.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, this should be your least productive, least consistent, almost, life circumstances aside, your worst week of the year instead of your best.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, just think about it. Think of how, flipped everything is. You start off the year with, all this going on. I'm going to change my year, and I'm going to do all these things better. I'm going to really focus and do this. And then the year goes on, and you get worse. And then instead of the last week of the year being your best, it's by far your worst. Because you basically mail it in. Yeah. And it's that I'm all in for big goals and wanting to achieve great things and making having just whatever you want to do, shoot for the moon, go for it. But it's knowing that it's going to take time rather than always trying to get it now. You're probably going to lose, for a lot of people, you're probably going to lose weight this week, but the way most people ate the week before, you could generally probably eat just a regular diet and basically walk 30 minutes and shed 5 pounds. Mm-hmm. With the amount of crap people eat between Christmas and New Year's and drinking and desserts and whatever it is. So it doesn't necessarily mean you've hung the moon already and you're already there, but it's a great start. And it's something we talk about a lot. It's never getting too high and never getting too low. And I think that and right now is one of those fragile places where some people are either, I think most people right now are one or the other. They're either really high and just totally pumped up about their New Year's resolutions, or super motivated, or they're just really, really down because they don't have any, or they don't feel like they can accomplish them, or they're kind of in flux.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about this yesterday with a friend of mine. I said the weirdest thing, and I think one of the most uncomfortable things that we tend to kind of ignore is that no matter how terrible it is or how great it is, it's still kind of uncomfortable because we know how short-lived it's going to be no matter what. Because life always isn't going to be, or training or your results or whatever it is, isn't always going to be super great, awesome, but it's also not going to be super terrible. but we try to attach them because we, for whatever reason, because we know that we hope they're going to be short-lived if it's terrible, but on the upside, if it's really great, we know that, it's eventually going to come down.
So true. So true. I mean, it's about being level, I used to have a business partner, and he was always just, he, for whatever reason, was just always calm. Like, he never got, I'd land a big sale or something, and he'd be like, all right, that's great. And then I'd be like, man, we got a big problem. He goes, okay, what is it? and he used to get me so irritated because I would like to get, we were growing a business, and it was just these big deals to me, and I was high and low and whatever. But anyway, before we get off of that typing analogy, I just want to add one more thing I thought about with that regarding swimming, because, you talk about the swim analysis and how you can look at somebody's stroke and kind of get them doing the right things, and that's sort of basically what you're saying about finding the right keys and typing the correct way, and how hard it is at first and how ridiculous it feels to your body and your mind and your connection to your brain and all that. And so I think what happens a lot is that people just don't spend the time in swimming to get that stuff right, and they kind of spend like sort of a lifetime in the water hunting and pecking, and they how much time is wasted by not, just having sort of like the basic fundamentals ingrained, and then once you have those, you can rely on building strength and just getting faster naturally. But it's sort of it's always this kind of shortcut mentality or whatever it may be. And I suppose that could apply to every sport, but how many people do that, Some days it may click, and other days you're just completely, off base and have no idea where you're going, and you're just scrambling to try and keep up. And, it's weird how technology is, I think, kind of adapting to that. I don't think a lot of people, like young kids, probably typed much. I don't know. I'm because it's like voice to text now so much, and they're just sort of making the whole thing obsolete. I don't know how you make swimming obsolete, but
I would imagine kids these days can text blindfolded, but if you put them on a laptop, they would probably type slower than they text.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Total guess. I could be totally wrong, but I just knowing, how technology is, and just what I would imagine most, kids or teenagers that have access to a digital device like that they can more than likely text much faster than they can type. So, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. So, you want to get into some more swim talk?
Yeah, we can cover the rest of those topics.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
I'm all in, man. Very zen.
How to not suck at swimming, number 4 coming at you.
God,
it's been coming at you.
Yeah, well, it was this, it was kind of part 3-A.
Cloaked in,
part 3 part, yeah. But
cloaked in deep hidden messages.
Hey, we get to it, we cover it, and there was a really good, we had a really good feedback from the last one, so we'll finish it off and not leave anybody hanging, and then who knows, maybe we'll take on how to not suck at cycling. We had a few requests in the closed group to make more of kind of a how to not suck series.
Yeah, we have one of those, I think.
Yeah, so maybe we can cover cycling and running and nutrition and transition and maybe even like a how to not suck at life, episode.
Yeah, I could listen to that one.
Yeah, I could too.
All right, man.
All right, man. Yeah, let it rip. Let's go.
Okay, let's just start with one of your favorite topics, which is like additional tools and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. I know you're big on the band and the pole buoy, basically.
Yeah, band, buoy, and paddles.
And paddles, yes, and those band, that's buoy, pretty paddles. Much as far as it needs to go in the Rosetta. What is that? Stone Guide of Swimming. Let's keep it simple.
Rosetta Swim Stone. Yeah, that's it.
So a lot of people, not a lot of people, but you every once in a while, I guess you see these new tools popping up, and one of them is this thing called the drag chute. Have you been using that one, or?
I do not use it. If you're gonna use it, I would recommend you being in very, very, very good swim shape. Mm-hmm. I know very, very high level swimmers that use it, like elite level swimmers, and they would base it. I think they would generally agree that unless you are, I would say, like 120s or below, then I think your time is better suited going other places.
Is that like that parachute thing that you see LeBron James running with all the time?
It's a little different, but it's the same. It's strength work.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really just one of those items where you work on strength. It'll force you to do turnover, but most athletes are already struggling enough with body positioning. Like if you don't struggle at all with body positioning, and you can churn things out at a pretty decent pace, then it's an okay tool to use, in my opinion. But however, if you still struggle a lot with body positioning, then the chute is like the opposite, like the last thing in the world that you need.
Yeah.
I mean, 99 times out of 100, and a triathlete is going to need 2 pull buoys at the same time before they ever need to use a chute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that just seems like a lot. I mean, most triathletes could probably just swim without a pull buoy and use their legs as a drag chute,
Well, that's it already works as a drag chute.
Exactly.
It's like, and listen, but just since I mentioned it, if you think using 2 pull buoys is crazy, then go try it. Like, I know that people will give you flack, but swimming the pull buoy is cheating, or it's a tool. You're using a tool too much, or it's not going to help you. I'm like, well, neither is swimming like shit for the rest of your life. That's not really going to help you either. But if you swim with 2 pull buoys in between your legs, like if you're a heavier individual, if you have heavier legs, 1 pull buoy probably isn't going to help you. But kind of what we talked about with the seesaw analogy in part 3 on that we released on Monday. So if you can't get level with just 1 pull buoy, then shove 2 in between your legs. Because the point isn't to make it so much it's not supposed to make it easier for you to keep doing the same stuff that you're doing. It's supposed to make it easier and helpful to get you finally like sitting high in the water. So A, you can feel what it feels like to feel higher in the water, and B, it will help you get that feeling for what your catch is supposed to be like, because your lower body and your waist and your hips and your legs and your feet aren't dragging you down. So just having the general ability to get an early catch and see what it feels like, guess what it's going to do? It's going to actually allow you to gain the swim-specific strength, the swim fitness, whatever you want to call it, in your lats, and to feel what that feels like finally, so you know what it feels like. Instead of just like, 2 pull buoys is cheating. And I'm like, no, this is supposed to make you better. Like, to get a feel for, making things, for making things better and easier, so you can finally get to develop the strength that you need, not to just make it just slightly less difficult. It's supposed to get it to where you can actually work on doing the movements you're supposed to do, so that you can swim like you're supposed to swim.
Mm-hmm. I had a thought on that topic the other day about, because I was looking at some things about core and lower back strength and things of that nature, and there was how they have those diagrams of the spine and the side views and all that stuff like that, and I had when you start I think putting on gut weight or whatever, that sort of like makes that spine curl and like push out a little bit and things like that. And so I started getting interested in working on my posture a little bit. And everyone's work on your posture. That's been the whole, everybody always says that. But I started thinking about that, and really, if you got that sort of curve that pushes your stomach down, that to me feels like it would be a problem swimming. You know what I mean? Like, I think I deal with that, is what I'm getting at, is that I have that curve that like convex or whatever it is. It goes up, and like my butt goes up or whatever, but my gut, like my torso kind of goes down, and I'm trying to think of ways to flatten all that out, like you're just talking about. And I think that has to do with because I have this DVD that I use for, it's like low back and core strength, and I think when I get in a groove with that thing, that really sort of helps me naturally in the water.
It can. It's all about it's all about body awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, swimming is, it's like, knowing where you are in the water, knowing what needs to be improved on, knowing what can help what. I mean, that's why it's so complicated and so confusing. Because it's just, there's so many, literally, there are just so many moving parts.
Yeah.
But generally, once you get to your fastest, usually what you figure out is that it's actually the least amount of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like, oh, I don't need my hips to rotate, barely. Like, people think you breathe from your hips. No, you don't. You breathe from your torso. Like, you don't have to rotate your hips over like a sailboat. You just need to, keep one eye out of the water and breathe, but there's so many different ways and exaggerations to do things that you can see people swimming and you're like, I don't know if you're doing freestyle or rhythmic dance or whatever you're doing. But once you see people swim, they literally will go forward and you can see, okay, they're just moving their arms and the rest of their body basically looks straight. But it's like you take all these, that's why it's so much of a puzzle. It's like you throw all these pieces and you're like, all right, I'm going to take one here. I'm going to take this one out and see if this works. All right, that didn't really work out. It wasn't as fast. It didn't feel good. So let me move these two around and then try this and try that and then remove this.
Mm-hmm.
And to finally you get to the point where you shed all the things that don't work and then make you feel off or aren't purposeful and making you go forward faster. And then you're left with just a couple things. And that's when you really start to find yourself making huge gains in the water.
I think I mentioned it last time, or I have mentioned it before, but like, and we were talking about sprints the other day, and that's when it's funny because I feel like I know that you can, I'm just talking about slowing down and getting your form right and all that sort of stuff, but I also feel like when I'm doing 25s, like yesterday, I felt like I wasn't reaching as deep with my catch, and I was more on top of the water, and I was trying to do the chin tuck and everything like that, but I felt like my face was a little bit higher. And to me, when you're going fast like that, you kind of start getting this impression too of being higher in the water. So it felt like something. It felt good. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
Like I was trying. Then I would do like an easier set in between. I would just focus on that, and it was not. Because my tendency, like sometimes, is to just dig in there and grab as much water as I can, and reach way down, and that's what creates all kinds of problems. But anyway, so the on top of the water is just what I kind of wanted to touch back on there, and along with like feel for the water and just being able to. There's a million, like you said, a million moving parts, and these are just more, But it's I don't know,
yeah.
It's a weird thing. Okay, so let's move on to another question here. It asks, how many days in the pool before you see faster times? I know you talk about your minimums and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many variables, but go ahead on that one.
Just very simply, I mean, we kind of covered this in part 3. If at all possible, swim more than you don't swim. I mean, 4 days a week if you can. Or anything. Even if, I had this conversation with an athlete that I work with in the UK, and he was like, I'm swimming, 2-3 days a week right now. Can I fit another one in? And I said, sure. I said, even like when I get in like a really, really good swim groove, it doesn't have to be like a mind-blowing set. Like it can be just to keep the feel, or like, so I told him, and I'll do this sometimes too, like if you do like a really hard run session, and right now a lot of us are, stuck inside doing hard sessions on the treadmill, hit a hard, treadmill session, do your speed work, and then go get in the pool and do like a cool down 1500. But don't just do a sloppy, I'm tired, 1500 of just slowness. Make it like technical skill work. Like choose drills that will help give you a feel for the water. Like sculling for 25 and then build for 25. Like that's honestly one of my favorite, if you're going to do a quote unquote drill, is sculling or band work, because right after you do any kind of sculling or do band work, your next 25 or 50, you feel like you're grabbing more water than ever. And if you keep them real short like that, it keeps that great feel, for the water. It keeps you engaged, and it keeps your mind and your body remembering everything and learning things and embedding it into hopefully its future habits, versus than having to always relearn it because you don't swim enough. So that's a great way to incorporate it. Don't go in there and swim 1,500 straight. Get in there and do 450s. 450s of this, 450s of that, 450s of this, and break it up or do, a little bit of pulling, but make it purposeful and split it up. But yeah, swim more than you don't.
Okay. If I may piggyback on that a little bit, because you said don't make it a sloppy 1,500 or whatever like that. But let's just say some people, if they're doing like a really long set or long 3,500, 4,000, something like that. But they're not ready for it maybe, and towards the end, the last 1,000 or 1,500 are real sloppy and whatever. Isn't that another reason, like the pull buoy or like paddles or doing something to keep? Is it worth? I guess what I'm asking is, it worth to power through with terrible form, or should you just get out of the water?
Not terrible form. I mean, form to where you're kind of slipping, but you're focused on it, versus just practicing continual bad form. Insert a pull buoy, keep your form, versus in sessions like that, a lot of times it's more important to keep your form than try to increase fitness, because at some point you're going to get to that, like, not so much of a return on your investment if your fitness is there, but you have to work so very hard to keep up because your form isn't there. And so you need to blend those together. You don't want your form to be great and your fitness to be terrible, and you don't want your fitness to be so awesome but your form terrible, because then you're just having to expend so much extra energy. I just use this as an analogy, because like it was so easy to see, like you looked at Lionel Sanders versus Patrick Lang running in Kona. Like how much more energy he was probably having to spend to run like that, versus the Patrick Lang who was running what looked like almost effortless. So there's that blend of form and fitness, to where there's that very happy relationship, where is you also don't want to get super crazy fitness and just really terrible form.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I'm looking at this next one, and we covered kicking in number 3.
Yeah.
But so basically, the question is how to avoid bending at the knees while kicking, and you're not a big fan of the kick in general. So
yeah, we covered it a lot in part 3. I would just say real quickly to touch on it, on that specific question, is really focus on pointing your toes, kind of extending them all the way, instead of keeping them, at kind of like a 90-degree angle like they would, like if you're standing. Really try and point them kind of like you would picture like a ballerina on top of her toes. Because if you extend like that, it's really kind of hard.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now in my chair. I'm extending my I think it's called like plantar flexion, I think, or plantar extension, or whatever. But I'm pointing it, and if I try to bend my knee, my foot like almost naturally comes up to 90 degrees. But if I keep it like that, and I just move with my quad kind of not tense but engaged, and try to kick from my hip, that usually helps.
Okay. We always get a lot of questions about breathing and bilateral breathing and things like that, and I know that you have a pretty consistent stance on this one as well.
Yeah, is it a skill to learn? Absolutely. Is it a skill that's really high up on my have-tos? No, it's way down on the list. And I was commenting kind of back and forth with some people yesterday in our closed group that, you'll hear like, oh, it's easier to sight if you can breathe to both sides. Well, not really. Like you sight looking forward. If you can see a buoy and you're breathing to the right and your left, you're not really sighting. You're just where you are. you're just seeing. You're
You're
just
seeing,
seeing
you're
a
not
buoy.
sighting.
You're not. I know it's different. Like you're not looking with a purpose of changing direction. You can do that looking forwards. And then I've had to kind of text back and forth with other lads. Yeah, I bilateral swim, but when I race, I always breathe to one side. And I know it's like it sounds and it makes you would think it makes common sense. I don't know really any swimmers, and I'm sure there are some. I don't know any swimmers that even swim at a pretty high level that change the side they breathe on based on the sun. Like they don't feel that they're as fast on both sides. That I usually breathe to the right, but the sun's gonna be my, so I'm gonna breathe to the left because I'm still just as strong. Okay. You don't see it. I mean, and I'd be interested to hear from athletes that feel like they're that accomplished in the water and have really shortened up their stroke to where they feel that both sides are equal. Then just as strong and just as powerful and just as efficient. Because if you've got that, then good on you. But I would mention even at the highest level of swimming, there's not that. So what if the sun's in your face when you breathe? To me, like when I breathe to the right and the sun's in my face, I'm not sighting to the right anyway, just like I just said when you breathe. Like if I breathe to the right and the left, I'm not sighting. I'm swimming, and I'm just seeing what I'm looking at. If I want to sight, then I look forward with an effective sight. Mm-hmm. And if the sun's in my way, then, I can't look anywhere else to sight, so I'm just going to go. And the sun's never, in any swims I've ever been in, ocean swims, no matter when it was never so bad that I just still couldn't see anything. And so while I might not be the greatest to look into the sun, I don't see the benefit, and I don't see that. I think you'd be sacrificing time on your swim versus comfort. I breathe to the both sides of the pool, but when I swim in a race, I breathe to the right the whole time. Am I good at breathing to my left? Sure. But is my rhythm and my comfort and my strength to the right? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's regardless of how well I can see in the water.
I think that's a good point, talking about seeing versus sighting, because a lot of times I'll look at a course and if the buoys are on my right, I always am like, that's a good advantage to me because I do sight or breathe to my right. But that doesn't, because if you're not sighting well, which is looking out and kind of picking that long point and aiming at a long, to keep that straight line, because a lot of times, the buoys may be on my right, but I'll look up and I'm like 20 yards away from it, and that's a bad, I'm taking bad angles if I'm just trying to sight as I go by buoys. It's got to be a long-term view to kind of keep that long. So, all right, let's go into the next thing, which is you're big on keeping the arms out to the sides, wide, big wide box, and someone's asking, how do you stop crossing the arms over into the front?
Best drill for that, in my opinion, is the Tarzan drill. I think there's a couple different versions of the Tarzan drill, but I think I saw someone comment that that they thought the Tarzan drill was good for sighting. Well, the way that I do the Tarzan drill, it's good for seeing, because you're supposed to keep your head out of the water the whole time. Mm-hmm. And so or it's either the Tarzan drill, or I call it the mom on spring break drill. Where you got the mom that dives that runs into the water and swimming after their kids, but she refuses to get her hair wet and her face in the water. So maybe she got like a new spring break perm or something. But the goal when you swim, if you're doing like a 25, is to literally swim with your chin all the way out of the water. And if you can swim from one end to another with your chin all the way out of the water, then it is literally almost impossible to cross over. You have to swim wide. You have to swim in a box. You have to swim, in that channel to the right and the left of your torso, to where you can grab the water. And not only that, but you get a good pull. because you have to get a good pull to stay higher in the water. So if you're really focusing on that, then that's the best drill I would say to do. And yeah, I do. I talk about swimming square all the time on both sides of your body. Are you always going to be perfectly square? Absolutely not. Mm-hmm. But the point is to at least try, because, I'm going to tell you to do one thing, knowing it's like the guy that you're friends with that is always going to be 10 minutes late. Mm-hmm. You tell him to meet at 11:45, even though you're planning on meeting him at noon.
Yeah.
Because that even though you think, like I do it in videos, like when I work with athletes in person, like tell me where you thought you were, or when we have camp and we have everybody because like the way we do our swim camps and triathlon camps and stuff, like everything is very engaged and everything. I really, really include everybody in the feedback, and I let actually the athletes give the feedback first before I even speak. You've been to tons of these, and I always ask him, where do you feel like your arm was? Oh, I think it was here. And then and everybody gives feedback. No, it was actually way over here. But that's why you have to be kind of exaggerated on where you want your arm to actually end up. Mm-hmm. Because in reality, if you exaggerate it, then it's probably going to actually end up where it's supposed to be. Versus aiming for where you hope it's going to be, and then you're still way off. And so, assuming you have to exaggerate things again, just because a lot of people, their awareness in the water, their feel for the water, and just generally being in water in general, just as a body, it's difficult just to kind of know where you are in that space because we're just not used to it. And so but yeah, again, if you can the square you can stay, the more powerful you're going to be.
That's good. I moved one of these questions up because I thought it fit better in here. But let's talk about cadence a little bit. Mm-hmm. Let's see what to measure, and what is important about cadence and why. And people are confused about speeding up their stroke. And why don't you just maybe riff on cadence a little bit?
Yeah, cadence is a big one. I mean, and it's a really broad subject in terms of what's best and what's worse. And honestly, like cadence, the importance of cadence to me also falls in the category of like what works best for you, mm-hmm. Within a certain parameter. In that. The one of the biggest reasons why am I a fan of Total Immersion? Not really. Do I think it has a benefit and it's great to just get athletes comfortable getting in the water? Yes. It is great for that. It's great for giving swimmers confidence in getting in the water. A, because it's easy. B, because it's not really demanding. And C, literally none of it is uncomfortable. Mm. However, there's no barrier to entry. They remove it by making it on almost like painfully and just debilitatingly easy and slow. Having said that, one of the biggest things and issues is that like they teach you for the most part, or from a habit standpoint, you see a lot of swimmers that have used that pick up this just like they're really slow. Mm-hmm. Glide and the softness and the carefulness. It's like they're literally trying to displace as little water as possible and get like a 9.9 on their pencil dive when they jump off the diving board. Like it's just like we don't need to splash. I don't need to be powerful. I just need to be smooth, soft, and it's like they're swimming for a Dove commercial, and that's just not gonna fly when you get into a race, and it's not gonna fly in open water. When you come against a current or waves or wind, or it's like you're just going to be screwed, and it's just going to be really hard to wake your body up and think, okay, I just need to swim slow and smooth, and then oh crap, I've got to pick it up, and it's going to be almost impossible. Mm-hmm. So you generally a faster cadence to go fast is very recommended. I mean, there's at the highest level you don't see you never see any gliding, period. Gliding is absolutely counterproductive and borderline worthless. Don't be a glider. you want constant movement forward. Now, once you get what I would call a higher cadence, even though there's not, so for me, like, if you went back and looked at like swim camp, we've got, we've taken 2 athletes like Ross and Elise, our taller athletes, like their swim cadence versus a shorter athlete's swim cadence, they still won't be the same just because of how they're made. Tall and lanky, because one full stroke for them gets them just as much, if not more, than maybe 2 strokes for, Sally Mae over here, who's 5'5". So that's why you don't have to have the same stroke rate. It's all about the stroke rate and the cadence that grabs you the most water, that you get the most benefit from. And like once you get to a certain level, that's why that skill is just so important to find. And I'll have athletes do this sometimes. If they get to that point, it's like, all right, listen, like swim a 50 on one cadence. Don't look at your watch. Just go by feel. And really like spin, because a lot of times what will happen is some athletes will say, all right, well, if I try to swim much faster, I actually go slower. Because what you see is like you're trying to speed your turnover too much to where you start to cheat the back end of your stroke. And so if I have, if I put in our swim squad workouts, like, distance per stroke, it's not distance per stroke as in gliding. It's how much distance you can create with each stroke while still maintaining your momentum and still maintaining your cadence and still maintaining your arm turnover. So that's kind of one of those things you have to kind of go through, is that am I speeding? And because you get to a point to where if I speed up my arm turnover too much, I'm getting my arm out of the water too quick, and I'm forgetting the back half of my stroke, which is a element in which a lot of athletes really, really, really struggle, is finishing on the back end of their stroke.
Yeah, the back end of the stroke. Yeah, because I think obviously too, it if you're swimming a sprint versus a full Ironman or something like that, you have to be able to sort of maximize that turnover with your strength, with your endurance, with your fitness and everything like that. It's a little bit of a different animal, right? So, or even a Olympic. Do you go harder in an Olympic?
Oh yeah,
it's a simple question. Obviously, you do, but
yeah, my
do you feel like you're
definitely higher in the Olympic versus Ironman?
Yeah. Yeah.
Olympic 7.3, not much difference. It's 0.2 miles, so we're not looking at that much of a difference. But between that and a full, absolutely. Yes.
So I just think that's important to think about, because I just don't know if everybody thinks about that.
Well, because
think about when you're running.
But a lot of athletes generally struggle with even just having a different pace in the pool.
Yes.
Like their hard and their slow are within like a second of each other. Which is not how it should be, which is important. And like when you do swim, is like finding what that feels like, in terms of like, in terms of pacing. Like it's just like every other, cycling and running in a lot of ways, in terms of like swimming easy, swimming hard, swimming, tempo. Like you need to find out what these differences are and get a, be able to kind of grasp the effort and the nuances of the stroke difference between, the different efforts and the different paces and the different tempos.
Let me ask you this: would you say that your stroke is longer in an Ironman?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one way to kind of gauge it. Is that you're
because it's more of an energy system saver. To really, really, kind of like the advice we give on like the Chattanooga swim, or a swim or a Louisville rather. When you got the against the current swim, really raise your stroke rate, to kind of get through. Then if you have a current, elongate it. Really, really, get the best return on your investment. And that's, again, like why you see athletes who really go slow and glide, like really get hurt when they have to swim against a current, because it's like 2 strokes forward, 1 stroke back, versus the length of my strokes are, the lengths of my stroke are generally much longer than most people in general anyway, just because I think I have a little bit longer arms. But if you've ever been around me when I swim, like I generally have a very long stroke, I finish way behind and I enter way out, but I'm getting as much water as I can humanly possibly get, hopefully, each time I take a stroke. And that's what my goal is at Ironman, is like, I'm going to get the best return on my investment, and keeping my energy and my effort lower while getting as much as I can to make me go further.
Right, yeah. All right. Now, I know you're not a big fan of dryland training as a substitute for being in the pool, but what kind of things do you ever do anything or recommend anything as far as strength work that supplements strength swimming?
I use this analogy. I mean, not really. I use this analogy in when I do a lot of swim analysis. If an athlete is struggling with like kind of swimming square, as I tell them to do like lat pull downs or like really, really wide grip pull-ups, because that's where you can really feel like your lats really, really engaged and what it feels like to have those tense and pulled on. And that's how it should feel when you're swimming. Not only to feel your lats and what that actually feels like, but also the how your arms need to be if you're doing, like it's the pull phase, when you're out. So, I wouldn't spend a ton of time on, if you're going to be on dry land and you can't swim, I would honestly just suggest you go row or hit the treadmill for a run session, then spend time doing dry land stuff. The only time I think any kind of dry land work is good, it's not really work, it's a warm up. If you've got stretch cords, like if you're at a race like Louisville and you can't get in the water beforehand and you want to kind of engage your arms and get the blood flowing and get moving and just generally get a good feel for things, then I think stretch cords are very, are great to use then, but there is absolutely no substitute for getting in the water.
No. Okay, so it's the lats, and you want to talk about shoulders just a second, because a lot of people have shoulder issues, and I used to have them too. A
lot of people, are you going to use some of your shoulder in your stroke? Absolutely, but where you usually see swim pain in a stroke is because they drop their elbow in the water and their catch is really, really late, or their elbow is just dropped. And so what happens is if you kind of put your finger on the top of your shoulder and press, that's where you see a lot of pain, because if you're swimming and you have a dropped elbow, well, then now your elbow is now lower than your wrist. And so to get to being able to pull that, you have to use a lot of your shoulder to fix it. And it just puts a ton of strain on your shoulder, which is another huge reason why I hate seeing athletes who really already struggle with any kind of a good pull using these gigantic swim paddles. Like if you go on like Stroke Maker's website, which is the paddles that I like for athletes to use, if you go on there and you look at like the swim paddles that I use, which are just barely bigger than my hand, they will tell you that they're for high school boys swimmers and collegiate women.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I think I use high school girls paddles.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you need help with swimming, you're probably not a competitive high school swimmer, or collegiate. So that's the point I'm trying to get across. And then, but it's so much of a it's just so much to ask for. And so, that's why, you see a lot of shoulder issues. It's not because you're swimming too much. It's because you're putting too much pressure on trying to fix a poor stroke.
Okay. There's a question here. Are you feeling like talking about master swimming at all?
No, I'm past that.
Okay. All right, so let's. There's a question.
I'm done. Listen, if you want to master swim, Rant, and I know a lot of you do, and you can easily find it on either part 1 or 2 of the How to Not Suck at Swimming, or even other subsequent podcasts where I riff on, what is unfortunately an epidemic of terrible masters swim programs. There are some great ones, but there are sometimes they're hard to find. But no, I'm not going to waste any time.
Okay. Let's talk about another one of your favorites, and that's sighting. We kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but someone asked about sighting practice in a pool.
Same as you would outdoors.
Okay.
It's literally no different. You're just inside. If you really need to focus on sighting, I think I have a video again in the closed group somewhere in the video archives you can look up that covers sighting or that shows sighting. But you should. It's something I would learn, but you can practice it in the pool. In terms of just kind of getting down, you pick every fourth length, at the end of every 100 to do it. It's always good to practice, especially right before a race. Definitely no substitute than getting an open water and sighting. That's another one of the things we work on our swim camps and tri camps is swimming to the buoys and the booms and doing hard, difficult scenarios with sighting. It just makes you comfortable, and then the biggest thing is like making sighting so much a part of your stroke that you don't slow down, that it just becomes part of your stroke, not a secondary action that you have to pause and do, and that's what slows a lot of people down.
Yeah, that's the one thing, right? It's like, well, first of all, you talk about, obviously sighting is crucial in races, but you like to talk about like how swimming square, and if you get your right stroke form, you're not going to be zigzagging all over the place. So I think that's what happens to a lot of beginning swimmers, like and can still happen to me, is that you get into this mode where you're like oversighting and you're kind of like throwing your body down, and your neck's not used to that much sighting. It's kind of like riding arrow, right? If you don't practice it and get your body used to that position, you start throwing yourself, you kind of overcompensate, and whereas when you talk about sighting, when you show it and teach it and everything like that, it's a very smooth, subtle move that just kind of peeks out in that direction. You don't sit there and look at the buoy and kind of like try and read the number on it. You just sort of get
this isn't periscope depth.
you just get a glimpse of the color. And you're just kind of keeping that. But we talk about that too. It's like, and you've kind of gone through this drill where you tell us not to sight and just imagine that your body is lined up and you try and keep square and keep swimming at that thing. And a lot of times, if you can keep that kind of internal focus and that rhythm in your body and that squareness and that straight line and visualizing in your head that you're going right at that buoy, a lot of times that really takes care of a lot of the sighting issues. But it's all about being comfortable, like you said, like practicing it and having it so down that you're not completely disrupting your stroke while you sight. And it's smooth, and or you can that's kind of like it's hard to do with a pool line, but like if you close your eyes or something, maybe that could kind of give you a little hint of how you're it seems silly, but it's a great way to see how straight you're swimming. You're gonna wake up quick when you hit your knuckles on that rope. And realize that you're pulling to the right a lot, or you're pulling to the left side, or whatever. So I don't know, man. We've got some more questions here, but I hesitate to try.
We're always going to have more swim.
Yeah.
So we can save it for part 5 down the road, or just cover them in general on a later cast. But it's a lot of information too. So you get to a point, especially with swimming, where it's almost too much overload, and it's time to kind of take a pause, let it sink in, and apply it. But no, we covered a lot again. Hopefully, a lot of useful information that you can take to the pool over the colder months and get better, get faster, get stronger, get more confident.
Yeah. And we have openings for our swim camps, right?
We do. Swim camp openings, they are in April and May. Already have at least 10 in each of those, so just a couple more spots. For those, 2 open water sessions, an indoor pool session, swim analysis, all fun stuff, and some cool people, plus plenty of extra time to train. If you want to, you got a race, or we can, hang out and do some fun stuff around here in Nashville. And then a couple more spots left. April and June, tri camps are booked. They're sold out. They are capped. We do have a couple spots remaining in our August camp. If you got any kind of a late season race or just want to get a really tough, pushing yourself 4-day span, and some great training, safe training with good people, then you can check out all the info on our camps too at crushingiron.com. Or if you have specific questions about details or itinerary, you can email me directly at c26coach@gmail.com.
Right. And if you can't get to Nashville, Coach will do a swim analysis virtually where you can get some video of yourself and send it to him, and he breaks it all down in a really cool, like 10-minute-ish video. And
yeah, it depends. It's usually anywhere between 7 to 15 minutes. It's super easy. You get it back. It's got voiceover, illustration, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just like you would see like when you watch NFL and do like a replay, like the telestrator. It's that. And I do like side-by-side video. It's really, really helpful. It's very, very cost-effective and something you can keep for forever. View it as many times as you like. You can even send it to your mobile device. You can have it at the pool before you do swims to knock those out. And then although our summer's pretty booked, I have had a couple questions about like traveling. Definitely open to doing some swim clinics. I did a few last year. I think the last one I did was in Colombia. We had about 30 swimmers come out, and so if you have any interest in having us come up or over to the side or down to wherever you live to either doing one for your tri club or just you and a group of athletes, never be afraid to ask. Shoot me an email at c26coach@gmail.com and see what kind of availability we have to do that, and be more than happy to do it.
Okay, that sounds good. And now we have, we talked about this is 126 podcast, and we're doing 2 a week. And actually, a lot of you have asked how you can support it and help us and things like that. And we have had a Patreon page up there, and I've just both of us have never just felt really great about that for whatever reason. It's sort of a monthly renewal, and I just personally don't. I don't know. I don't like it, and I appreciate everyone that's done it. And I'm kind of saying that we're going to phase that out, and we thank you so much for helping support us and getting going. But instead, what we've done is we've created sort of a pledge page on our website that you can just kind of maybe just send us a one-time pledge or whenever you feel like it or whatever, kind of like here's something that we feel like this is worth over the course of a year, or whatever it is. So like just send there's kind of a PayPal donation button there, and it's an easy way to kind of like throw us a bone, I guess, to kind of help us pay for the hosting and all the stuff and the equipment and all this kind of stuff that goes with the podcast. We're just trying to figure out a way to keep making it better and stay consistent with it. And it's a lot of effort. We love doing it and everything like that, and we're going to keep doing it. It's not like that, but anything helps. There's a tab on the crushingiron.com website that says pledge, and it's a real simple way to do a donation either through PayPal or your credit card or something like that, and it goes directly to us. There's no fees involved, and it really helps us with the podcast portion of this vision.
Simple,
yeah.
Just I mean, it is. It's really simple. We're going to keep doing it regardless. But like you said, we've had a lot of people ask, like, how can we help? Even if it's just like a one-time, podcast pledge. Like, how can we help you guys keep doing this? And like I say, it does take quite a bit of time for us to do these, put these together and equipment. And we'd definitely like to up our equipment, as we talked about in the beginning. So. We are the car. and we'll always, keep gas in it so we can keep moving. But if you wanna pitch in and help us cover some of the gas to keep us moving, then we would be very appreciative.
Yeah, and like I said, we thank everybody that's been supporting us through Patreon. But if you want to kind of slide that over and not have to worry about monthly charges on your credit card or bill, I don't know. So anyway, as you can see, we're real comfortable talking about this sort of stuff.
You're doing great, man. Keep it up.
All right. Join our closed Facebook group. Crushing Iron Group is the search term phrase. And we'll let you in there. And the season is here, man.
It is here. And thanks again to everybody who has left us an iTunes review. If you haven't, and you like us or you hate us, but let's be honest, if you made it this far in the podcast, you probably don't hate us. But anyway, we'll take any kind of feedback, positive or constructive. Please take the time, if you can, and find in your busy schedule, to leave us an iTunes review. They're incredibly helpful. Again, we don't get any real benefit from it in terms of like sponsorship dollars. We don't do that, but it does help other athletes find our podcast in terms of when they do searches and just seeing that, getting good feedback and reviews on what our podcast is about. So if you could take the time to do that, they're always much appreciated and very, very helpful.
Yes. And that's a good point, I think, too, that I kind of forgot about, is that we're not really actively seeking sponsors to sort of like just put sponsors in this podcast, just for the sake of it. So that's kind of one of the other reasons why we went the Patreon route and or now the pledge route, because it's really not the way we want to go necessarily. So that would be cool. Thanks for helping.
I would much rather not start out our podcast trying to sell you a bed, health insurance for cyclists, or underwear.
Yeah.
Or a razor. I'd rather talk about, basically nothing for 15 minutes before we get into the show. And keep things moving that way.
Yeah, because that way, you never know what's going to happen.
That's true. Never know. But thanks again, and we will check you guys on Monday.
Yeah, Monday it is. This is it for How to Not Suck at Swimming podcast part 4. Thanks for joining us, and
we're out.
See ya.